But when we continue to tell ourselves that past, we strengthen it. Hello everybody, it's Nathaniel here. On today's episode, we're discussing the power of changing the meaning or changing the interpretation. Now, this can seem like a weird topic, but for anybody who's dove into this work and looked at how we can do that, there's a massive amount of power and liberation that comes with changing our interpretation. And so I'm going to share 3 stories of my own life with you to show you how I've changed the interpretation, or the story I've told myself, and how that's made a massive shift in my life. And then I'm going to give you some questions, some ways that you can do that. And these questions are very powerful, but they will challenge you. So to dive right into it, we all tell ourselves stories about our lives. Whether you've grew up in a tough house, maybe you didn't have money, maybe you've been through some really brutal struggles growing up, or maybe it's bad relationships, or maybe you've had injuries and health issues. And that's the story you've told yourself, because it is, in that moment, it is true. There is truth into that. But when we continue to tell ourselves that past, we strengthen it. And the more we tell ourselves that, our subconscious doesn't know the difference, and so we just keep reinforcing that to be our future. It seems like a weird concept, I know. However, this is something that I've had to really come to terms with and really understand and grapple in it and understand the power of it and how massive that shift can happen. And when you have that shift and adjustment, you take control of your life. And I realize now that I've done this time and time again, but I wasn't able to put into words. I didn't really understand it. And it took me a long time to figure out. So the purpose of this is to shorten that. So again, going over a few stories. Growing up, there was 7 siblings in the house of me, myself, and 7 other ones. 7 of us total. That's a lot of kids. And we didn't have a lot of money. We really didn't. My parents did their absolute best, which is amazing and wonderful, but we didn't have a lot of money. And we didn't grow up with much. And now, some might say that story is sad because we didn't have a lot of food. We didn't get a lot of extras. We didn't get the lavish birthdays or the gifts or Christmases. And that was tough, especially growing up around other families and other kids that did have that. That can really make you feel like you're not worthy. And that's something that I've had to struggle with in my own life, is that worthiness. But the shift I've had from that is that, yes, that happened. But what did that experience teach me? What did those tough times of having little food, or hardly any money, or not having these lavish, or even just lavish, just like even normal gift, or at least in our society, birthdays and Christmases, what did that teach me? Well, it taught me to have a huge amount of gratitude for when I did receive something. It taught me hard work because I had to start working very early. I had to have a paper route when I was 9 or 10 years old to have any money. And even then it wasn't a bunch, but I still had some money that I called my own. So it taught me that, and to value things, to value a full fridge, to value even having any food in the house. It taught me to be grateful for those things, because you could always have less. And I grew up with people that had less. So again, I could focus on the negative side of that story and just say, I didn't have anything and that's why, or look at what I learned from it. And that's exactly what I did. I decided to learn from it and look at what it did taught me. So another part about me is, not many people know this, but I played football. Well, played football, so it's pretty common known, but I played in the CJFL for a few years, so Junior Canadian Football League for a few years. And in my 3rd year, I actually got a really bad injury. And it ended up taking me out for the whole season, which was brutal because I felt like I was finally starting to get some momentum. But that injury was really tough for me personally because I've never been injured before that. And it really threw me into this depression almost, because in my head, the story I was telling myself is, why did this happen? I finally getting a shot to be able to play and be able to start and to compete for a starting spot, and boom, it's out. So that was super tough. But what I realized after is that injury was the spark, and that low was the spark that led me to my personal training career. Because I went through a brutal injury and I wanted to recover quick, and I never did. Was the spark that led me to focus on rehab and focus on helping people with their injuries. So it actually was this weird little blessing in disguise, because something that good came from it is it forced me to change my path quickly. And along that, I was having kids at a very early age. I had my daughter was born when I was 20. And so that same thing is it forced me, I could go, oh, I'm a young dad and this, and look at the statistics and look at all these negative things behind having kids early. And a lot of times people, our society does that a lot, is, oh, you're having kids, oh, and it's like, you know, we look at it with such a negative lens. But this forced me to grow. It forced me to become a man quickly, as best I could, and best I knew how to become a man and become, more importantly, a father, and what that actually looked like. So, and that injury and having a kid young all were at the same within a few months there. So that really forced me to dive into my career and really focus on what I wanted when I was 20. Whereas most people in their 20s are partying, drinking, doing all sorts of stuff. And there's a lot of good things that come with that, but a lot of times it's just a lot of your party years. I didn't really have that, but it pushed me into my career, which was such a blessing, and that I look at it from that lens. So I changed my interpretation. I changed my meaning of that, which was great. And even starting to continue the story, even starting that personal training career, it was a huge struggle. I struggled for months to try to get clients. And I could, again, look at the story and go, well, this is what it is. Maybe I'm supposed to quit. Why is this happening to me? Why me? Why can't I just have it this way? Why is everybody else getting clients? And that was the story and the words that I was using in my own life. Looking back, it was such a blessing because it forced me to become better. I had to really look at every consultation I was doing and every conversation I was having, and how I carried myself and how I talked, how I walked and carried myself in the gym. I had to change all of that, but for the better. I had to transform myself, become a better version of myself. So that shift from blaming and being stuck in that story, well, I guess personal training's not for me. I guess fitness industry is not for me. I guess I can't help anybody. Versus, okay, what do I need to become better? How did this make me a better person? And it forced me to look at where I was weak, where I wasn't very good. What are other people out there doing? The people that were successful, what did they do? How can I copy them? How can I emulate what they're doing? And that's exactly what I did, which ended up being wonderful for my career because I ended up getting a huge amount of experience. I had a massive amount of sales experience in a few years that actually slingshot me past everybody else that I was competing, or at least I felt like I was competing against in that gym, and specifically in that industry. So it shot my sales and my communication and my relationship building ability so far ahead because I was just forced to do over and over and over again. Every time I did something, I had to get better and better, which is the skills I'm using now to help other small business owners, which is so much fun, and I'm absolutely loving it. So again, to look back at that story, I could sit on the meaning that it cost me thousands of dollars in debt, and it was a waste, or could have been considered a waste, or it was the catalyst to make me a better version of myself, and to be able to now help other people in the fitness industry grow their business, because I've had to do it 3 separate occasions and with other businesses as well, which is so wonderful now to be able to use that. So again, changing the meaning, changing my interpretation, changing how I feel in my own self when I tell myself that story. Last story I want to share is, and hopefully some of these stories are resonating with people out there, because I find I always hear myself in other people's stories as well. So the last story is just in my previous relationship. And I could look at it. It was not a good relationship. There was a lot of fighting. There was a lot of blame. There was a lot of shame in that relationship. There was a lot of just negative things that had happened. And it cost me a lot of time really being in that negative relationship. But again, I could look at that and blame the other person. I could be very angry, and rightly so, and I'm sure she could say the same about me, as I could blame them and this was your fault and this is why this. Or I could look at it as an experience and look at how did it make me a better person? Can I be grateful for that? Is there anything there that I could be grateful from? And is there anything there that I could have learned from? Because looking back, if I didn't have that experience and realize the almost 10 years of how not to do a relationship, right? All those negative things that I did in that relationship, and whether it was presently or unconsciously or unconsciously, I did things that made that relationship bad and that I could have controlled. So that was 10 years of that. Now I have this amazing relationship and realize that that was actually a blessing because I'm able to learn from all those negative experiences and realize that those are the ways I don't want a relationship. Now I have this amazing relationship over here that is wonderful, and we never fight, which is such a blessing because I'm able to use that experience and realize that story that story that I told myself before about all that bad relationship, I can change that, and I can change the interpretation and how I feel about it. And so that's what the topic is today, is about doing that. It's created power and strength in my own life. I'm not saying this is easy to do. It takes a huge amount of presence. It takes a lot, even more forgiveness, not only for the other person, but more importantly yourself. And that can be the toughest thing, is to forgive yourself for being that version of yourself that you didn't like then. And that's something that I had to do, forgive myself for being those versions of myself. But on the upside, I was able to be grateful for it because that person led me to who I am now. So my questions for you are this, and the questions that you can take home and ask yourself and write them down, because I find that writing them down, you really spend more time thinking about it and you'll find more will come from it. So write these questions down, and it's just 4 and they progressively get harder. And I'm not saying this is easy, but starting with, if you have had a negative or kicked in the junk moment, a bad experience, something that you feel that you're talking or thinking about all the time to yourself. Maybe it's a divorce, maybe somebody cheated on you, maybe somebody stole money from you, maybe you got fired and you didn't feel like it was justified. Is the first question to ask yourself is, what did I learn from this experience? And now quickly you can go, well, I'll never trust that person. And that is something that you can learn. But I would encourage you to take a deep breath, breathe, meditate. What else can you learn from that? Really dig deep with it. What else did you learn from that negative experience or that story that happened to you? 2, what good came from it? This is even tougher. So again, I told you this question would get tougher. Is what good came from this experience? Maybe you end up getting a better job. Maybe you found somebody else in a better relationship. Maybe you learned maybe you went back to school because of it. I don't know. Maybe you started a new, better career. Or maybe you started an amazing business. There's always something good that you can find from these things. Or most of the time, there'll be something good. And if not, what good could come from this? Question 3, again, getting harder to ask yourself. But are you a better person because of this experience? And when I look at all the people I've interviewed and had these amazing discussions with, whether it was bad accidents, terrible relationships, financial stress, drugs, alcohol, they all became better from it. And so I know this is tough. It can be really tough, but Write it down. How did this make you a better person? Write down the ways. Maybe you get more disciplined. Maybe you more determined. Maybe you have more drive, more passion. Whatever it is, write it down. And then this is the most hardest one. I told you they're going to be more difficult. The hardest one here. But really where the true freeing power comes from is, can you be grateful for that situation? Can you be grateful for that thing that happened to you, for being cheated on, having that bad relationship? For me, it was growing up with no money. I'm grateful for it now. I truly am. Having those injuries, I'm grateful for it. It brought me to where I am now. Having that bad relationship, as weird as it sounds, I'm grateful that it happened because it made me who I am today. And then something so liberating about it. And anybody that's been through that, anybody that's experienced that, knows the feeling. But it's like a weight off your chest. It's a weight off your shoulders, and you feel like you got wings, because now it's like I can take all these negative things that's happened in my life and realize that I can shift, or perspective shift, and change the meaning, change the interpretation, and realize I have so much power that it's given me, and the true power that comes when you have that shift. So to recap, what did you learn from this experience? What good came from it? What positive came from it? Are you a better person today because of these experiences? And can you be grateful for them? So that's my homework for you. And I would love it if you wrote that down. And even better, message me. What did you come up with? And if you're struggling, reach out. I would love to help you, because that's what I'm doing now. And that's what I love and to help people with, is working through these difficult times and mapping out what a better future looks like, especially when it comes to starting up your own business and working in relationships. So thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate you taking time in your day to do this. If you haven't yet, like, subscribe, share the message, because not enough good is shared in this world. And if everybody shares, one person shares with 3 people, and we keep doing that, we can just share so much more good in this world. And that's what we need. We need a positive message. So thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Bye for now.